Okay, and now for the back yoke, we're going to eliminate, we're working with a 2-dart block, but we're going to eliminate 1 dart, turn the other into a princess seam, and we're going to have a invisible zipper at center back that will be 6.5 inches long, and Joanna will show you how to do this now. Okay, starting with my center back, I have my 6.5 inch below my waist seam, my hip seam. I have my 6.5 below my waist seam. So I'm going to start with what I want to keep. Okay, and I always make it a little longer because this will be the bottom of our yoke without seam. Okay, so now I'm going to pick this up. We're going to keep this first dart for now. Go to the second dart. This is the one we're pivoting out. And we'll pick up my hip, come around, and come down. So what I want to do is I want to come back to my front, and in red or another color, I want to get my original hip shape in there and where my bottom yoke is. Okay. I want to blend out that dimple a little bit. And I'm going to scribble out what I don't want. So everything on the inside is my clean line. Now I'm going to come back. And so 6.5 length plus my seam allowance is 7 inches. So I'm just going to start putting tick marks parallel, 7 inches. And then you'll see I have a slight divot. We're going to get rid of that. So it's hard to see. I'll put my ruler right there. So see, here's the divot. It comes up too high. So I don't want that. So I'm just going to get a good blend between the two right here. Okay? So now we still have the dart. So I'm going to draw that dart in. I'm going to come down and try to be parallel to the skirt and extend it just a little bit. Oh, wait, no, I should follow the angle of the dangle, huh? All right, sorry, change. I want it to follow the length of the leg, of the inside dart leg. And then this dart leg, we're gonna eliminate this. So now I will take my curve, and there's a little tiny dimple there. I don't want that dimple there. So I'm just going to pick up a little bit and round that off. Okay, maybe your front. I just want to make sure my hips walk. So it's good that I've got 2 colors in there.
So she's got her front yoke pattern now. She's walking the side seam to make sure they match. She just hasn't cut that front out yet.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to do the same thing that I did on the previous one. That's hard to see, but I had to add that quarter, so maybe my scribbling was a little preemptive. Okay, so I'm going to come back here. There we go. So now I do want this. I want this corner, so I've circled it. All right, we're just going to blend, and then now we will physically eliminate this. We'll cut this straight, and then we'll cut this blend, and then we'll come back and we'll add seam allowance to this side, seam allowance to that side.
I put my grain line on before I cut it.
Yes, sorry. So the back has 3/4 of an inch seam allowance. So always locate your true center back. I like to make that my seam. And I'm just gonna go parallel out. That's a little too far. And that's my seam.
Your grain line.
My grain line. It looks wonky, but when it's closed, it follows the body.
Okay.
All right. So then I'm going to cut this out off camera. I'll cut out my front off camera.
Let's go. Go ahead. Cut it on camera. So do you want to add seam allowance, or you want to cut it first?
Well, I have to cut it out so I can add the seam.
Okay, that's right.
Did I add seam to my bottom?
Yeah. And your cut.
Okay, so I didn't add it to my bottom. So Pam is correct. I need to add a 1/2 inch to my bottom. And I'm always perpendicular to my seam until I can get to a point where I can just make it straight.
There you go.
Now I'm going to cut it out. And it's a 1/2 inch. Most of our seams are a standard 1/2 inch. It wasn't very neat over here. I'll clean that up. I'm just going to cut it out like it still has the dart. Okay, so before I go on, I'm going to write center, back, yoke, and I'm going to write side, back, yoke. So I don't get them confused. I write them right side up so they go with the body, so I always know what is the top of my pattern and what is not. Now I'm going to come back and cut the straight line. And I'm just going to follow the angle straight down. And now I'm going to cut this one out. And right there is where I'm going to round out that little dimple.
Okay. All right, eliminated the dart. Now she's going to add her seam allowance on that princess seam.
Okay, seam allowance on here is a 1/2 inch. Kind of follow your angle a little bit. Okay, and that will be your notch. And this 1/2 inch will be your notch. And because it's a back, I'm just going to randomly put 2 notches here. A notch there. So you put it on the non-side seam. So you could put an SS there so you don't get lost. I'll tape the backs properly. And now this, I'm going to switch to my little ruler so you can see a little better. Okay, so I'm just going to go always perpendicular to my seam. And this is that wee bit of curve right here, not much. Close it off. It's hard to draw on tape. And then I will close this off. That will become a notch. This will become a notch. Okay. And then after I cut this out, I will walk it and then we'll put the other notches on there.